Right, welcome to another lesson in high school. Right, welcome to another lesson in high school ICT. In this lesson, we want to look at document production, and we are going to be looking at organizing our page layout. We're going to look at page size, page orientation, and then the page and gutter margins. Right, let's have a look at our page setup grouping and have a look at some of the functionality over there. So we've got margins, orientation, and size. And just click on these, we can see the different margins that we can create, and we can customize our margins as well. So they've got preset margins depending what you want your margins to be at the top, the left, and the right. And when you speak about the margins, you can see down the left over here, this is my top margin and my bottom margin, and I can set that manually. I can also go and, which we'll do just now, set it for a precise height or width that you want for your page. This is my margin, my left margin, and this is my right margin over here. Okay, then we have size, so it depends on the paper size that you want to use, A3, A4, A5. And we can go to more paper sizes and we can change what we want over here. In this pop-up box you see that it brings up margins as well, and it brings up our layout as well, and we'll speak a little bit more about that. As I said to you, the nice thing about Microsoft Word is that they have 3 or 4 different options to get to the same destination. Okay, and if we click on the More button, again it brings up the same pop-up that we could use. Okay, so let's go have a look at our Margins button, and I'm going to go to Customize Margins, and you can see over here that I have my top margin. Remember, I moved it manually, or I can use the spin arrow and I can choose to change my margins. And if you look in our little preview box down below, you'll see how the page actually moves. Okay, so you could be asked in an exam to set the top margin and the bottom margin to a certain distance, and you can choose to move the left or the right margin, and you can see how it is busy moving in my preview. So, and if you look on the right hand side of my preview, you can see how that will also move. Okay, alright, so you can go and play around with your different page margins, etc. Good. You might also want to change the orientation of your page from portrait to landscape. Often that is, landscape is used when you want to, for example, put in a table with wider columns, then you need more space, you want to change then your orientation, it might be photographs you're putting, etc. Okay, and then also you can apply this to, from this point forward, it might be your second or your third page or whole document, etc. And we're also going to look at page breaks that we put in and section breaks in another video, and how you can have one page or 2 or 3 pages to be portrait, for example, and then change it later to landscape, maybe page 4 and page 5, and then go back to portrait, and so swap it around. Okay. The other thing that I want to explain is when they speak about the gutter. So the gutter is basically when you have printed or you've typed onto your document and now you print it and you want to bind it. You might want to staple it, or you decide you're going to ring bind it, and you need a space on the left or the right depending how you're going to bind your page, or maybe you're going to make a book and then you need it folded in half. you want a space down the left, and if you look in our preview over here, you can see this dark area. That would be then taken up by the binding, whether it's the holes that you punch in the page, or as I said, if you staple it. So what you don't want is to have a small area, and you can see this sort of darkened area is the area that would be for our where you would do your stapling or your punching of your holes. So you don't want it to go into the actual margin, because then it means that some of your writing might be obscure. So in our pop-up we have the gutter, and we have gutter position, so we can have it from the top or the left, keeping it on the left. You might decide that you want to mirror the margins. So in other words, if it's a book you're creating, you want to have the same effect on the left page and the right page, etc. You can also choose a book fold. So the various options that you can try. Normal, etc. Okay, and go back to portrait. Right, so if I go to my gutter and I click on my spin arrow, and if you watch the preview, you can see that this gray area or this darkened area is getting slightly wider each time, and you can see that I set the gutter, so there's quite a thick gutter for stapling or punching of holes or ring binding, or it could be glue, it could whatever it is that you're wanting to do. If I click OK, you can see how it's moved right across. You can see I can move my margins up manually, but can you see that the margin is only going to move to a certain distance, and that over there where you see that line going down, that area is the gutter that we speak about. Okay, so it only moves that far. So if I go back to my page setup and I add my margins, if I change my gutter position, bring it down, oops, it's a bit much, so take it to 1, click OK, and you can see now that I can move my margin, but I'm not moving my gutter position. So in other words, that's as far as my margin will go. That is the edge of my page, not necessarily the page itself, but that's the edge of my page where the gutter is, and that's the part that I want to staple or punch holes, or if it goes to the printer, that's the part that would be glued. Okay, so again, I can move my margins manually. I can click on the drop down, custom margins, I can change my gutter position, say to 1.5. I can move my left margin, so from the gutter to move 1.7 or 1.6 or 1.5 to the right, and my right hand margin I might want to drop a little bit more, and that'll be 1.5 from the edge of the page. And again, you can see moving my margin. Alright, so that was it for this video for today. Go and play around, maybe type in some text. You might want to put in a certain amount of text and see how that changes. But yeah, go and practice with the different buttons. Okay, so I've put in some text, and you can see how it changes my margins. And if I again customize margins, and I change my gutter position, so make it 2.5. Okay, you can see I can move, my margin only moves to that size. There we go. And I might want to change it to landscape. You can see it looks slightly different. Change it back to portrait. Okay, you can see how my margins also change as I change my page size, etc. These are preset pages. Okay, so you might want to go and play around with some of those. Mostly what they would ask in the exam is for you to change your margins, the top and the left, and the gutter position. That's normally what is asked, and sometimes they might ask you to mirror the margins as well, so you would click that and then you click OK. Good. In our next lesson we're going to look at how we insert columns, column breaks, etc.